Hi, I'm IKEA, and for today's video I wanted to do a build showcase on the Obliterate Striker. And while I've alluded to in the past that I wanted to use these build showcases to show off the beaten path builds, off-meta builds, so to say, I've been convinced by some friends that maybe before I lead everybody deep into the forest and show you all the fluffy, cuddly animals that live in those corners, I should maybe perhaps just show the straight path through the forest first. And that labeled analogy is there to just say, yeah, I will be discussing some meta builds as well in these build showcases, and I'll try to alternate and give a little bit of both. As yes, I do actually agree with them that maybe, especially with all of the newer players joining us, it might be more useful to actually show some effective builds. And if we're discussing effective builds, there isn't really anything higher on the top of that mountain than currently Striker. And we're talking about one specific variant of Striker today, which is the Obliterate Striker, as we call it, or Obli Striker, as we shorten it to. And that is a really great generalist build. It isn't the top damage dealer of Striker, but it is very easily used to go through all of the content, basically. As always, these build showcases will be split into two chapters. In the first one, I'm going to talk about the build a little bit, show you its layout, show you what weapons and skills and such I use with it. We're also going to discuss some of the numbers, some of the calculations behind the build. The build layout itself, I don't find that interesting. It's very standard layout, but the numbers are quite interesting, at least I feel, and I hope you will join me for those as well. And then we're going to go into a chapter of gameplay where I play the build and live narrate, as I always do, and just tell you how I am playing it, show you some of the tactics, and give you hopefully some of the basics so you can run the build effectively as well. As always, I will be using my build collection and some of the build pictures from there, and everything will be linked below, together also with the calculation sheets that I'll be using later on. And to actually jump into the build, let's start discussing Obliterate Striker. Now, we specifically say Obliterate Striker, and that just is the giveaway that we're using a high-end chest, so we're not using the Striker chest, because when we say Obliterate, we're talking about a talent that could not be on the Striker chest, so it has to be on something else. In this case, it is on a Seska piece, and yeah, Seska is the strongest brand you could have alongside most of the builds like Striker that are crit starved, as we call them. And we call them crit starved because you basically do need Seska and usually even a few more rolls of crit chance to get them to effective levels of crit chance. So in this case, that's also the reason we're going for the Coyote, as the Coyote as well in all of these builds fills up a very strong crit chance increase and crit damage increase that is basically unbeatable. One thing I do want to touch on is a lot of people feel that maybe the Coyote with its range buffs is somewhat RNG-ish, or maybe that like you have to keep an eye on it or you have to be in a specific range. I will show basically in the calculations, and that's also why we're going into some calculations that basically up to 25 meters, nothing competes with the Coyote here. And that's the reason why we're going to use it. To discuss Striker itself very quickly, first off, I will be using, the gear set itself is actually called Striker's Battlegear, and I'm specifically pointing that out because at points I will abbreviate it, especially in the calculation sheets, to SB, which is the two-letter abbreviation for it, which almost nobody uses because we all abbreviate it to just being Striker. But yeah, that is SP, and that will come up later. For the two-piece bonus, we get weapon handling. Weapon handling is accuracy, stability, reload speed, and weapon swap speed all rolled into one stat. And so every point of this is 1 point into all of those. So that is actually pretty strong, especially reload speed goes into your sustain calculation. So you're sustaining a little bit more. Accuracy, stability is nice. And even here, we are actually using the weapon swap as well a little bit, although it's not an important thing. What is an important thing is this rate of fire, and rate of fire is very strong. It basically works as all stats do. It's additive from all sources. That's also pretty specific point that I do want to point out. So a lot of people think that rate of fire is multiplicative to itself. It isn't. It just gets all added together before it increases your RPM. And you can test that yourself by having rate of fire on Striker and having a weapon where you put rate of fire as its third stat, and you will see that it's additive to each other. What that does mean is that you do get diminishing returns, so to say. You get worse returns per point, but it's also so low values that in the same way that with damage to targets out of cover, you have it on the weapon and on Fox for a high-end red build. Here as well, it's so low that, yeah, those little bit of diminishing returns isn't really an issue. So yeah, this 15% is very strong. As long as basically you have no other rate of fire buffs, which we do. I'll discuss that when we get there. But this is basically a 15% increase, actual increase to your damage. Then we go into the 4-piece, and the 4-piece is actually the mechanic of Striker. And to shorten all of this text, it's basically we build up stacks every time we hit enemies, and we can stack up to 100 times. With the backpack, we gain 1% per stack, and that 1% basically leads us to having a 100% increase. And one thing I also want to note here is that we have here written it as weapon hits increase total weapon damage. That wording would normally indicate that it is total weapon damage as the stat. So total weapon damage is a stat on its own, which is a pool, so it would be additive to that. What we know for certain, because we can calculate it and see that it matches up with in-game, is that this isn't total weapon damage. And total weapon damage would be things like obliterate here or vigilance. All of those feed into total weapon damage, and they are additive to each other before they multiply to other stats. And Striker isn't that. Striker is its own stat, so to say, its own substat. So it isn't additive to anything else. So this wording is basically wrong, which has happened to a lot of the talents and new talents that have been added since Season 9 with the newer development team. They haven't been as clean as the older development team with keeping all the wording correct. There's a lot of mistakes in there, so you just have to know that. And the second part of this is that it decays. So you decay stacks over time. What we're basically going to shorten this to is that we're going to, for 100 stacks, we're not using the chest to go to 200 stacks. So in the case of 100 stacks, we're going to lose all of our stacks in 75 seconds. That's basically the shortening of this alt text here. So we have 75 seconds before we go from 100 stacks to 0. So all of those long corridors that you go through that are there for cooldowns for skills and such really hurt Striker because, yeah, basically every time there's a long walk between rooms, then you lose all your stacks, basically. And the layout of it is basically just this. It is a backpack, gloves, knee pads, holster, a chest, Seska chest with obliterate, and a coyote's mask. It's quite simple in its layout. And this is also the recommended layout. Just basically starting out, do it like this. And the numbers wise, actually, if we jump to the build picture of this build, you can see that I have 3 crit chance rolls, and that is basically how you set it up. 2 of them will be on, one of them is basically on the coyote guaranteed, that those stats are fixed. The second one is recommended to have on your chest, so you have crit chance, crit damage on the chest. And then one of the other pieces on its minor should be a crit chance. And in this case, you see I've done it in the mod slot of the backpack. And that doesn't need to be there. It can be any of the other minor stats. It could be one of the pieces or such, and just you put it in there. The weapon, the FAMAS, has 3 5% crit chance rolls, crit chance mods together with the plus 20 mag. And all of that together, with the watch as well, of course, at full, gives us 53 crit chance as our main crit chance before Coyote. And also 141 crit damage. And that's also the recommended numbers that I would recommend you hit. Of course, this is all maxed out with all max mods and such. But yeah, try to get over 50 and get over 130 crit damage at least. Of course, you will need watch points for that and such. So if you're missing some watch points, you'll do a little bit less. If we then jump back into the game, I will show you my weapon choices, because there is actually one important point, and that is to use an ACS to stack. The ACS is very strong with both Striker and Heartbreaker, because they stack quite differently than other talents, and that is that shotguns, per pellet that hits an enemy, they will count as a stack. All shotguns fire 8 pellets per shot. The ACS itself is really great for this because it is both automatic, so you don't have to, you will fire at the RPM that it states. You don't have to manually click and try to get the RPM up in that way. And it is a very high RPM as well, further increased by Striker itself. And yeah, that means that nothing really can beat the ACS at stacking. I will show that also in the gameplay. Even a vector is less than half of this speed. So a lot of people think that it's worthwhile to use a vector to stack with, or run a vector as a main. It's viable, it's okay enough, but the ACS just does it so much better. I'm using a rock and roll. A rock and roll isn't really required. You can just have a ACS, as yeah, the rock and roll is a DZ item, so you would have to most likely you would get it from a named cache if you play long enough, or you can go farm for it or buy it from a DZ vendor or such. But yeah, it doesn't really come, it's not really required. The reason I do specifically have a rock and roll here is that I also use this build, as I will show here actually, as with the chest. It is even, I'm on my first character, and in there, if you actually go in my build, collection, you will see that actually, yeah, this is saved like this, with a Coyote's mask instead though there. And I basically have the pieces to swap to an obliterate variant, to go from a chest backpack variant to an obliterate variant on the fly. I just have the holster in my inventory at all times, and I have a Seska chest that gets used in a different build, and I just swap that in. And I usually have most of the exotics that characters will use often on them at all times, so a Coyote's in there as well. And yeah, with the chest, the rock and roll becomes a little bit more useful, because then I need to stack to 200, and 30 rounds gives me a better chance to get to 200 before I need to reload. But you could have an ACS here. It could be with Pummel, or with Close and Personal, or with Flatline, together with Technician. And yeah, use this to stack with. Then the main weapon, I really recommend the FAMAS, unless you want to go Flatline again. But I really like pairing this with Gunner. I like having fast hands, especially on a build like this. And that makes it so that I'm really not going for Technician, really. The FAMAS itself is the highest RPM weapon. It's the highest burst weapon. It's, I believe, top 5 sustained DPS. I should have looked it up actually. But yeah, it's a very high sustained weapon. It's the highest burst weapon. So yeah, there is, and it's the highest RPM. So it all fits together really nicely with Striker itself. I'm using fast hands here. You could use, of course, as I said, yeah, Flatline, but for Flatline, I would recommend going M4 or Carbine 7 or something like that, or P416, something, you need something with a long rail to use that Technician laser, which, the FAMAS doesn't have. The FAMAS has a short underbarrel rail. That's basically its only real downside. As I said before, it's going to be all crit chance mods on it, and reload speed. Same for, excuse me, for the ACS. There is also just crit chance mods, and it doesn't have a magazine slot. And yeah, other talents you could use as well is Strained, especially with this. And if Strained makes your eyes perk, or your ears perk up, because you believe something that is a myth, I will actually address that in a few seconds. But yeah, fast hands or Strained if you do not want to be locked into Technician, and Flatline if you do go for it. And yeah, Flatline is a very strong talent, so it is actually worth going for. The pistol isn't really important. I'm using a TDI card custom. I'm using that for that +1 skill tier. You can also, of course, here use a busy little bee, as that one is a little bit overpowered with its talent, and Striker is a little bit overpowered with its talent. So you could put both of them together and get something actually truly overpowered in the places where you can make effective use of it. Jumping on to specializations, it's a red build, basically. It's agnostic to what you really use. I'm using Gunner here. Some of the perks of Gunner really apply well here, as I get extra ammo, of course, and that weapon handling when you're standing still and such is really great. But you could, go Technician for Flatline, especially, and Flatline is the strongest talent currently, and it is. If you're going that route, Technicians makes a lot of sense. All the other ones, Survivalist, Demolitionist, and Sharpshooter, all three also give some things that are worthwhile to run, especially if nobody else is running it in the team. Having the Demolitionist, you give you that group buff. You have that grenade launcher that can delete waves. Crossbow is nice for just deleting armor plates. Flame grenade is really nice. The TAC 50, same. You can just you have a long range tool, so for just starting and taking out one important enemy at the start, and you have those flashbangs as well, and the stability bonus as well from the talents is also really nice of it. One thing that a lot of people feel is that if we are going to discuss Firewall as well, is that Striker is a short-range build because you use that ACS at the time. I don't really agree with that. I will not often be in the ranges that the Striker shield will be active for, so I'll go on the periphery, stack on the enemy with the ACS real quick, and then I will swap to my FAMAS and then just play it as a mid-range build. But if you do play it a lot more close range than I do, then you can go Striker for that shield especially. And the Flamethrower is also nice for just CCing some spawns on doors as well. But it's basically agnostic. Just choose whatever you want. You're not locked into anything. The only time you will be is if you go Technician for Flatline. And skills-wise as well, you're just open to all of the skills that you like to use here on a red build. I will often have a Reviver Hive, as long as Cool Skills isn't active, and that is, of course, just to revive myself. With the pistol, I'll discuss that in the gameplay as well, how that works if you don't know it yet, to have it revive others and still go and pick it up and still have it for myself. Here you see I have the shield equipped. I will often just swap this out to what I want. A shield is nice, pulse is nice, decoy is nice, EMP sticky is really great for especially Black Tusk and their dogs. Foam cam is nice as just panic CCs. Demolisher and Blinder Firefly are both great as just opening salvos of a fight. Even having a turret or a drone is nice to give access to in sync, for instance, or just to have them as harassers and just have extra points that enemies can shoot at. So it's pick whatever you like, what you like having there. Experiment with a lot of the skills and see what works for you. For today's, I will likely use Pulse, EMP Sticky, or Foam, or Shield. Those are my recommended ones. And but in the same way that it's agnostic about what specialization you use, you're also freeing your skills. It is a red build. It's not locked into having anything specific there. If we then quickly just jump into some of the numbers that I've pre-prepared, this might sort of a little bit daunting if you do not know these yet, but I will explain as we go through, just as a brief introduction to this, and I will actually do a separate video on how you fill these in. These are my damage calculators, and I will link to this sheet and also to empty sheets of this that you can use to calculate your own builds at. I've color-coded some of the stuff, and what you just need to know especially is that this upper 10 rows are corresponding to these lower 10 rows in these sections. So we have several ones of these. As we go down, you see that there are several of those, but it's basically that row is corresponding to this row. Here I fill in the stats, here I get the output. And it's laid out like this because otherwise it would be very long in a long line. And the other thing you need to know is that these percents are all in comparison to the one at the top. So in this case, I've put a glass red. And when I say glass red, I mean a traditional glass high-end red. In this case, it's without the contractors, it's with a Fenris and a Gruppo. And that used to be basically the old top dog of damage. And I've put it here just to showcase a little bit. So these blue ones are, that are corresponding with the stats from down here. These blue ones are with the chest, the strikers with the chest and the backpack. And as you can see, especially if we take the C indicates, so here at the end of this, it says Gruppo, and then C0 to 15, C 15 to 25, and C 25. And yeah, the clever ones among you will instantly guess that, yeah, that C means Coyote, and those are the ranges that it's at. If we take the highest damage numbers that we have here, which is for the Coyote as 15, from 15 to 25, with the chest and the backpack, so not the variant we're discussing today, but the variant that needs to stack to 200, we see that's 170% of a glass red, a glass high-end red. And yeah, those are pretty crazy numbers, where in the past we would run a glass red when we really needed the extra damage output basically to carry hard. A striker with 200 stacks just beats it. And there are a lot of places where a striker can actually reliably reach 200 stacks. But the reason we're discussing an obliterate variant here is specifically because it's a lot more generalist. So you only need to hit 100 stacks, as I showed. And reaching 100 stacks is very easy to do, as I'll show in the gameplay. And that's why also this is the chest and the backpack variant is it's a lot more damage, but it's a little less generalist. And that's why we're discussing the obliterate variant here. And if we go to the green ones here, we will see that the green ones corresponding to with these stats as well over here. So here we're discussing a Gruppo one, and then going into the Coyote. So this Gruppo one is basically, what if I swap the Coyote to a Gruppo mask? And if we do that and we take that as the baseline, so here I've made a second row of percentages, just going off of that Gruppo part, we can actually see that if we go into the Coyote stats at 0 to 15 and 15 to 25, we're just above it. So going from a Gruppo mask to a Coyote mask, from 0 to 15 and 15 to 25, we're just above it. And even at 25 plus, we're a fifth of a percent behind. We're 0.2% behind the Gruppo. And also the FAMAS that I'm using is, actually I should have looked it up, but I'm pretty certain that it's a 28 meter optimal range weapon. And that means that I have 3 meters basically in this 25 meters before I start dropping out of my main weapon's optimal range. So I will try to stick underneath 25 meters. And that means that both at 15, to 0 to 15 and 15 to 25, I'm just better off with the Coyote. So why not use it? The only reason to not use it, we actually do go, why not use it, is if there's 2 or 3 already in your group. Especially in Countdown or something, this may happen. And what you then can do is actually put in a Gruppo mask with crit damage mod, crit chance, crit damage on it, and basically get the group ups from your allies, and then also get the brand bonus from Gruppo and have the best of both worlds that way. But yeah, quite often, if you just actually keep the Coyote on, you're still better off than having had just the Gruppo piece on, and you're providing group ups as well. The other thing I wanted to quickly note on, because this gets propagated quite a lot, you can see here I've made one here, which is this gold one, and that is to indicate this with high-end piece, and that is with the Fox. So what if we went Seska chest and a Fox's prayer instead of that Gruppo piece, and it's getting compared to that Gruppo piece as well up here. So, but you can see it's just less damage, and that's just to show that a lot of people make videos with Striker Obliterate or Striker Focus and such, with having a fox in there, that's just you're giving up damage. Just having a group piece with a crit chance crit damage roll on it instead of that fox's prayer will increase your damage by 2%. And this is even if you consider DTOC to be full output, which it isn't. There's quite a lot of things that are in cover. When you shoot them, you stagger them out of it pretty quickly, but it's still eating 2 or 3 shots before they actually get staggered out of the cover. And especially with something like LMGs that set up, the Outcast and the True Sun LMGs, when they do that animation and they set up and they do a sustained fire, they're basically impossible to stagger out of it. So they're just eating up your DTOC. So this 98% is even if it was at full value at all times, which it isn't. It's more around 85% to 90% active, at least in my experience. And that's actually really high. That's actually really good. That's also why we do use DTOC, especially on high-end builds. But here, where we are crit starved, it's less of an option. And it is also it is the reason why it's lesser choice, is that when a lot of people think that damage to targets out of cover or damage to armor and such are more valuable per point than crit chance, it isn't. It's that crit chance is more valuable than those per point, but crit chance caps at 60. And where with a high-end build, we can easily reach 60 and have a Fox and even have a Contractors as well together if we wanted to. In Striker's build, where there isn't much crit chance available, and we would basically have to swap rolls from crit damage to crit chance to make up for the crit chance lost to a Fox's Prayer, we basically lose that. And especially if we then compare this, so there we were comparing it, this 98% is compared to a Gruppo. When we compare it to the Coyote at 0 to 15, it's almost, it's 3.5% less. And especially on the Coyote, when it's on 15 to 25 versus the Fox, it's almost 5% less. It's just a little under 5% less. So you're just giving up damage for no reason. Because while even you could say that Glass high-end red build does play differently than an Obliterate Striker, especially as it doesn't have to stack. It's just active from the first shot. A Fox variant of this build versus a Coyote variant of this build plays literally the same. It is completely the same build. You're not gaining anything. You're not losing anything. So there's absolutely no reason to go in it. And I just wanted to go on that tirade because I see it a lot. I see it also in a lot of other people's videos. And to me also, when you see it in the wild, it's an indication that they do not know how to calculate. And that is, I would recommend at least following content creators that know at least how the game works a little bit, which might be a little bit biased to myself. If we move on to this second part, this one's a lot shorter. We here are basically comparing a 53 crit chance variant versus the 47 crit chance variant. So basically here I'm saying what happens if I take that mod, crit chance mod, and swap it to a crit damage mod that I had on that backpack. And what we see here is that it does increase our damages. So all of it is again compared to that initial Gruppo. So we have to compare basically this 0 to 15 to this 0 to 15, and I've done that down here. So I've compared the 53 crit chance versus the 47 crit chance variant at 0, at 0 to 15, 15 to 25, and 25 plus. And you can basically, if we just quickly look at it here, this is how much the 47 does versus amount of sustained DPS it does versus the 53% variant. And we can see it's doing 97.7% of it at 0 to 15, because of course we have that little bit less crit chance there, but it's doing more at 15 to 25 and especially a lot more at 25 plus. So this one is basically a choice, and you can basically go, do I play it more close range? Then I go 53. Do I play it more mid range and long range? Then I play 47. And this is a viable choice, especially if you go flatline or such, because there you do not care that much about that you're losing some of the crit chance, especially at short range. Because here, especially if we were using, as I am, fast hands, with 53, we're stacking up a lot higher on fast hands than we are with 47. And that is going to be noticeable on the reloads. I'm just going to reload this real quick because something loaded weird there. And yeah, that is because, yeah, I did update this and specifically to also show this. And this is going to be the last final, or well, this and one little extra part in a second. And that's going to be that we're going to discuss here. So here I've put this build, the Striker Obli, at 100 stacks, and then we're going at 0 stacks, what the output is, and 0 stacks as well on the obliterate. So at full stacks, we're doing 100%. At no stacks at all, so the first shot we're basically firing, we're doing only 40% of that damage. But just to compare that here with the Unbreakable, so this is all high-end red builds. This is the glass red we had earlier. This is an obliterate version at full stacks, and this is Unbreakable, so Unbreakable plus Vigilance. And we can see that, yeah, basically, especially at full stacks, it just trounces the glass red still. The glass red is doing 70% of it. And especially, so even at empty stacks, we're pretty close to an Unbreakable Vigilance build. It's really close. And that's actually, yeah, pretty strong still. And here we can see actually, here I've put it at the 0 obliterate stacks. And what do we need to meet to basically overcome glass red? And we need 77 striker stacks. So if we were to keep obliterate at 0 stacks, we would need 77 striker stacks to match a glass red. And that's not an obliterate red, which is even lower, or Unbreakable plus Vigilance red. This is a glass red. This used to be the old top dog at 77 striker stacks. So even if this obliterate, instead of the striker at least, was a Unbreakable chest, so it wasn't getting any total weapon damage bonus here, at 77 stacks, it would beat a glass and you would have Unbreakable to fall back on. And if we especially include that obliterate as full, then we would need 41 striker stacks to beat the old glass red. And this is basically why I feel that this build is a little bit overpowered, a little bit overtuned. And as yet, at 41 striker stacks, we're beating the old top dog. And getting 41 striker stacks, you could just do this with a FAMAS in one mag. That would also get you pretty close to full obliterate as well, with 60 crit chance. So yeah, this is actually quite overpowered. I actually had one other one prepared. I'm going to actually just quickly go take us into in-game as I pulled that one up, because for some reason it did get closed and I'm uncertain why that happened. But if you hadn't noticed yet, I do most of these live and I just go in one take. But I've prepared it now to jump back in here. So here I've actually prepared a sheet of, and this one I'll link as well. And this is just the talent calculation sheet. I've input the numbers that would match the 15 to 25 meter build that we had with its numbers as well. And yeah, the sustained DPS and such match up with that one. So I know it's matching. And this is just to show which talents you could use. So I'm using fast hands, and as you can see, fast hands adds nothing to our damage per mag or to our burst DPS, but it's adding to our sustained DPS by quite a lot. And that's why you use fast hands. It increases your sustained DPS, it decreases your reload time. That doesn't affect burst at all. What you could as well use here is, as you can see, in sync is a viable option, but of course that means giving up your skill slot basically for it. Flatline, as you can see, yeah, it is a 15% just flat increase. So that one is also very strong. It of course does cost you 5 crit chance for that mod, but you basically make up what you lose there you make up more than that. With the talent, especially if you go perfect flatline, of course, with the Kingbreaker. But I don't like the Kingbreaker that much, especially for the 15 to 25 meter range that I usually play it in. I feel it fits a lot better in Heartbreaker. But the specific thing that I really want to talk about, and especially what I alluded to earlier with your ears perking up with Strained, is that, yeah, A lot of people say that, and it's a common myth, that you should use Optimist for higher RPM weapons and Strained for lower RPM weapons. Here, this is the stats with the FAMAS and on Striker, so we're actually dealing with the 1K35 RPM of a FAMAS on Striker. And here we can see that Strained still wins. Strained just straight up still beats Optimist. And this is why you should actually always calculate these kinds of things. Because yeah, I in the past also used to believe that it seems logical that, yeah, of course, one of them is a little bit more RPM reliant, but you should basically always calculate these kinds of things out, turns out, because yes, a Strained will basically do a lot more damage than, well, it's 2%, but 2% is also, I mean, why wouldn't you? If you had the straight choice between these two and you've seen these numbers, why wouldn't you go Strained over Optimist? And that's just to lay that one to rest as well. So yeah, don't go Fox, don't go Optimist. And in a second here, we're going to jump into some gameplay, and I will show you, again, actually, that trick that I've showed as well in another video, but I wanted to re-show it again, where I see where we're headed to when we are matchmaking. So in a second, I will meet you at the White House and explain that. And yes, to once again show that little trick of how you can see where you're headed to when you're random matchmake. I'm just going to actually show it off right away. We are going to matchmake for a random heroic mission. I will escape out of that. Once I have the invite, or even before, you can go into the social screen. This is in the escape menu, the social. Once you're here, this invite, their invite is basically here, and we can select a name and see where they are. So in this case, we're directly seeing in this upper right that we are going to go into District Union Arena. Sometimes it will show a zone, and then it's not always certain because they might be farming in a different zone than they are matchmaking for, but often they are at the mission marker at the start as well, so you can usually guess from there. We are loaded into District Union Arena. I'm right away looking at my allies. I see that one of them does not have any blue cores, the other one has either 1 or 2. Or no, well, 2. And I'm just going to push up with them. Pulse. I have swapped to the Pulse from the shield, and that is just how I usually actually run it. I really like having a Pulse. I'm pretty addicted to it, so I've swapped to it. I will likely move around with that as well. I'm going to go for this loot, and this other ally knows that he can loot it. Once I've opened this, they can loot it from that side, so they just stayed there. And I'm just going to move up with them. Another ally has joined. They are also without any blue cores. I'm going to pulse again and move up. And this is the gameplay loop of Striker. You just rush up, you stack with the ACS. Once you're a little bit stacked like I am now, into the 90 stacks, or well, 75 plus, I then swap to having my FAMAS, and then I just start killing with it. And less so than with the other builds that I've shown so far. So with the Eclipse, or with the Red Patriot that I showed before this, I'm a lot less reliant on my allies. So I'm a heavy damage dealer. I know I can kill. I don't need others to kill some of the stuff for me. I can basically kill any of the things that will be in front of me. I'm going to heal up here because I did hit my health gate. And while it can be nice to have somebody supporting me, so in the, especially if an Eclipse, let's say, or even something like a Red Patriot or a FI or something, I'm going to get res there by my hive. We did get rushed by those two because we were pretty far forward. My ally is actually falling back there, which isn't actually the right choice. It's way safer in this cover. But yeah, my hive's on cooldown now. But also, I don't mind having used my hive. I don't mind going down at all, usually, as a red build. A lot of people really try to never go down. And honestly, you give up too much doing that, usually. So unless you're a really good player and you don't ever go down, most of the players that choose to never, go for survivability over everything, never go down, is... they basically never put themselves in situations that they also can deal good damage. So for me, I play it pretty aggressively. I'm going to grab these shock rounds into my pistol. Who plays it pretty aggressively. I know that, yeah, sometimes I will go down. What I will always watch out for is basically the cooldown of my hive. So once my hive's on cooldown, I will actually not play it as aggressive. I'm fully stacked again. I'm going to do that. I'm going to toss a foam grenade there. Hopefully catch someone. Didn't. And one of the things that is happening here is that I'm dealing a bit too much damage. And that means that I'm also aggroing everything. But I can likely CC for myself. I can, by hitting the pouches on some of the enemies and such, and hitting the backpacks. And I'm not going to push up beyond this point, basically. Normally, if I had my hive, I would actually push up a lot faster than this, up to basically the wall ahead of us, and put myself even closer. And being close is really nice because it increases your accuracy, basically. It's your spread has more, your accuracy becomes easier to account for, basically. The closer you are, the bigger the target they are, the more play, the easier you can shoot them, basically. I thought everything was dead, but that wasn't the case. One thing was still alive. I will take a second here to inspect my allies, because here it doesn't really matter. We have a red build, but not with good guns. We have a 3-piece aces, not a build I would run in in a mission, really, but it's fine. And yeah, we have basically 2 red builds with us. One of them was glass. I don't remember actually what the other one was. I'm actually going to push up here. My hive's going to be back before... If I die here as well again, my hive will be back before it. I'm going to use that pouch to get some CC out. I'm stacked to full already. I see that on my bar. And that means that I'm going to swap over to the FAMAS and kill these last few waves with my FAMAS. And yeah, especially for like hitting that headshot through that hole, that's so much easier at close range than it is at mid range. So the range is actually a really good thing for accuracy. And that's why you will also see me be pretty aggressive, and especially when I have my hive. When I have my hive, I know that I basically have one free death available to me, especially here where I know there isn't going to be any jammers. We're fighting hyenas, we're not fighting black tusk or anything, and also there's no directives active that will, like cool skills that would take away my hive or something, or special ammo from Black Tusk as well, where they will disrupt you and make it so that your hive will not drop. And again, I'm going to do the gameplay loop, stack on that enemy. I'm going to play it very aggressively, go up here. I'm not going to go for the weak point there because they were too close. I'm going to kill the shield guy because I see that he's on my allies, and I had a really nice shot on him. There I'm going to go mostly for the reds first, just get the numbers down. I see there is one hyena rush in the background. I tried to go for the weak point, but a shield actually did a real nice job of blocking me. And I'm going to kill them as well. Oh, for a second, I was expecting the rogue sound. I haven't had rogues in a while, but the target loot here is RNK, which, yeah, makes it at least easy to deconstruct everything. Pulsing again, pushing in. I'm going to hope that my allies kill that one on the left. I'm going to push all the way up here and just quickly stack on that heavy. Gonna kill that shield because he's flanked me basically. And here also one of the things that you can do, especially when you're this close, just blind fire. I don't need to be aiming there to hit that heavy, so I can just blind fire them. I'm going to toss a foam grenade, see if I can catch something, but here as well, I'm just going to blind fire and just go through the shields. Just make it easy on myself. I'm going to stand up here. Yeah, I'm just blind firing onto the shields. I will take some return fire, but it's not going to be as effective as if I was standing up. I don't want to heal there really, and I was just hoping that my allies would finish it off, but I'll finish it off myself. And yeah, Gunner is also giving me armor and kill, although I'm also using that armor and kill up pretty effectively, as you saw there. And yeah, that's kind of how you have to play this. And that is also the gameplay loop of it. You run in, ACS something, and then you swap to your main weapon and keep going like that. And while I'm playing it a little bit more aggressive, especially because, yeah, I know missions well, I know I'm stacked to full there, and I will just start killing. One thing you will see me do as well is actually rush in a little bit and basically create a second line of fire. That's something that I always try to do. It's a very effective thing to do because there... Oh, actually, I was hoping there was actually a hole there, but I'd actually never rushed up that far. But yeah, there is... these curtains are closed.
Don't die, motherfucker. Not a chance.
But yeah, basically adding another line of fire towards the enemies is always really handy. Because even if they get suppressed or they're in cover, I will just flank them and kill them. Grabbing that loot, we're gonna jump through this window because we can, just for style points, and then get caught on something which loses those style points right away. And we're gonna move into this boss fight. Here I'm gonna quickly go to the basically in the same way that you would do this on heroic or on legendary. I'm gonna go to the second balcony, take the high ground basically, and go from there. Along the way, I'm going to see if I can stack on something. I'm going to move up to here and then pulse, just so my pulse shows me most of the data, and going to use it to stack on them. I didn't hit my my health gate there. I'm just above it, so I was pretty fine in just rushing to the side. And the reason I want to set up here is, well, first off, it gives me great targets of opportunity, and I'm trying to actually catch that wave when it spawns, and that's going to be when the next one thing dies, but it didn't. I am going to actually use that pouch to do that with. I am at close to full stacks. I'm just going to unload onto that heavy. I am actually outside of my optimal here. I see that just from the damage numbers. It's a little bit lower. No, actually, so there we're just about inside of optimal. I actually don't know what the range between these two is. I'm going to wait for my ally there to, yeah, shoot them in the back, and then I'm going to join them and just kill them real quick. I'm going to pulse again, show where all of the enemies are, and then we're just gonna make our way through them. And while I'm actually not playing that well, especially as always, I am live narrating as well. It's good enough.
Hello?
We have loot all the way up there. I am gonna go for it because we shall leave no loot behind. That used to be our motto. We'll gladly leave allies behind, teammates behind, even priority targets and VIPs. We'll leave all of those behind, but we won't leave loot behind. I'm just gonna grab as junk all of this thing, and I'll sort them out later. We don't have a super low level player with us, so I'm not actually in the mode of grabbing items for other players. I'll if I see something good at the end, I'll share it, but likely not really. There's a resource back there as well, but I'm afraid that they will put me on a timer. But there is one chest here, one weapon crate, which I will take. And this, yeah, this is ACS. And yeah, that ACS is basically close to mandatory. I would say it's basically required for both Heartbreaker and Striker. You really should just have one. There's no reason to really stack with anything else. I'm just going to quickly check. So this is a obliterate with... I'm trying to think of the name of this talent, Unstoppable Force. And this was a... Okay, yeah, the sniper. Going to pulse again. There's shock rounds here. I'm going to grab those, put them in my ACS. And we're going to just push up. And I'm going to take position here, which is also basically where I always go. I'm more than halfway on my stacks. The game thought that I double tapped my spacebar, which I had definitely not, and made me roll. There I was hoping for a rusher in that group, but there wasn't, so no free CC. Here I'm gonna blow up the backpack, stand back up, chain that one, kill that shield, chain the boss, just so my allies have some time to do some stuff. And I'm just gonna try and get the numbers down more than anything. We're fighting quite a lot of things. I'm going to heal back up again. I now also see that I only have 2 med packs, so if I can grab some med packs, I will do so. My allies aren't dealing that much damage in comparison to me, so everything is kind of staying aggro to me. I am going to put a foam grenade on that grenadier because I really want them gone, and they were cowering in cover. And again, gonna chain the boss. I see on the minimap that that wave across spawn. This is going to be the last wave that can spawn, so I'm actually just going to take the time to kill them. And if I go down here, I'd rather actually not, but so I'm going to play it a little bit safe. Because I want to keep my we have one more room, and then we have the room of the boss, and I'd rather not. I'd rather go into that room with my hive intact. I'm going to push up on the left side here. I'm pretty confident in being able to blow up that backpack and take them out.
Diesel, are you dead too, you inbred son of a bitch?
Yeah, Diesel has been outbred from being an inbred to an outbred. And we're just gonna keep making some more bread. I'm just waiting for my allies to catch up. So in here, I will actually go into the room and quickly hit the objective and then just push up real hard. I will grab med packs because, yeah, I was down to 1 med pack. I used quite a lot in that fight. This ally is going in, so I'm going with them. Gonna pulse here, put everything on the map. I'm going to let them come out a little bit more, just a little bit. Gonna foam grenade there, and then I'm going to engage. And I'm fine being in range of that disorient because, yeah, we're so close that here I'm going to actually set up to hit that button. I don't want the whole team to be disoriented there because that's actually a common way that teams die. And I'm mostly actually more focused on this side. I will kill this heavy real quick. Pulse in between. Kill them. Hit that. Here I don't want anybody to be caught up inside of that door, so I will mostly wait till they're mostly out of it. Because I know there it can bug out a little bit. I can't pick up loot while I'm disoriented, so I need to wait for that to clear up, and then I can deconstruct all that pile.
Air filter function restored.
One thing you won't see me use here is the specialization weapon. The minigun is just, I have a FAMAS. I have no, if the only reasons to use the minigun is if I run out of ammo, really. It is actually handy for those times. I do sometimes grab it just because I've ran out of ammo, but in these missions where there's so many ammo boxes, we won't have that issue. I'm going to do it again. Push up, do the gameplay loop. Stack up on that enemy. I'm most of the way there. I already see. I'm going to pause here actually. I want to save it for the next wave, but I'll do it here just to put them on the map for everybody, and so everybody's really clear. I'm going to push up on the right side here, play it really aggressive. I have my hive. I've saved it specifically for this basically, so let's use it here. If I don't need to, I won't. But of course, I'm not going to actually, go for dying, but I'm not afraid to go down once. And yeah, here we're just pushing through everything. I'm going to use that one to CC. I'm going to set up here. I'm a little bit confused where everything was because, yeah, it is actually a little bit hard to see through that. I'm going to pulse here. The boss wave doesn't really concern me that much, so... And I've saved my hive for here, so even here if I need to. I'm fully stacked. Once they... that enemy is still alive. Once that enemy is dead, they're here. I'm actually going to toss a foam grenade there, just in case. But we have this CC there on that pouch. That will be enough to kill the boss with. And I've set up here again, so I've created a second line of fire. The boss either faces me and gets shot in the back by my allies, or he faces my allies and gets shot in the back by me. And that's what I always mean with that. Create second lines of fire, basically. Gonna go through this loot, see what useful, what's grabbable. Likely nothing, because I don't see any chevrons here. But just as a quick check, and then we will quickly look at the damage numbers. Although damage numbers are always a little bit finicky, especially if you're doing Outcast or True Sons missions, but from here, just from the kills, even if we don't look at the damage, we can kind of guess, as there was also no Eclipse or something that was eating up kills, which with an Eclipse, for instance, you will have more kills than everybody else just because you're killing all of the reds and such. But here, we were all red builds, and yeah, I basically outdid close to all of them combined. And that is the power of this build. It is very strong. It is the meta for a reason. In a second, I will join you guys for a second piece of gameplay. And before we head into that second piece of gameplay, I just quickly wanted to show that I've basically sideboarded in Technician, so to say. That has given us access to the Technician's Pulse Laser, and that's made me swap to an M4 with Flatline talent. And Flatline is one of the most strong talents that currently exists, especially it's strong and it's easy to apply. And we're going to apply it with using Technician, and we have this linked laser pointer that is going into the underbarrel rail that you receive as one of the perks of Technicians. And that is letting us have an easy pulse, and that easy pulse is letting us amplify our damage by 15% to all enemies, basically, as everything we aim at will be pulsed, and we deal 15% to pulsed enemies. That has, of course, taken up a mod slot, so we have dropped a little bit in crit chance. And also, I just wanted to quickly say that, I wanted to say it in the last part, but I forgot, is that I was using FAMAS that was expertise graded to 21. So that is actually quite a strong FAMAS. In calculations, from calculations, I know that is 9.12%. So just a little bit over 9% extra damage just from that extra 21 weapon damage. This weapon isn't graded to 20 or 21. 20 is actually more recommended over 21. That one is just done for, aesthetic reasons, so to say. But this weapon, yeah, we are losing a few expertise grades, but we're gaining flatline, so it will break even somewhat. But I just wanted to show this variant because especially if you have the same grading almost, you will deal a ton more burst damage. Also, the M4 has an optimal range of 35 instead of the 28 that we had with the FAMAS. So also, as I showed before, this 48 is a lot more, is a lot better in mid-range and long range. And our M4 is also letting us be more effective at long range. And yeah, I'm going to jump into a group again, matchmake for a random heroic mission. And again, show this trick of going here and selecting their name and accepting an invite for 2 bridges. And 2 bridges is going to be Stranded Tanker. I want to say, I don't know the especially the New York zones. I always mix them up. I do believe 2 bridges is Stranded Tanker if they are matchmaking for the mission there, and we are. We have 2 directives. We have Fog of War and No Regen. No Regen is basically a free directive, and I will show in a second how that is if I take some damage. And yeah, I also only have the laser, the pulse laser. I only have it on my M4. I do not have it on my ACS because I'm not running spotter, so I do not need to specifically have it. Here you see me set up for this door, and that's just because I know that door opens a lot faster than the garage doors that you can go through there. I'm stacked to full. I did hit health gate, so I'm going to actually heal back up. I have 4 med packs. Might as well use them. There I wasn't ADSing, so where with the FAMAS I could actually blind fire like that and deal full damage. I cannot do that anymore with the M4 because I do need to ADS, so aim down sights if you don't know what ADS is, to actually get the pulse on them. And there I played it a bit aggressive. I don't know what my allies are yet. I basically jumped in hot, so to say. And I'm now noticing that they're not dealing a lot of damage. And I was just playing it as if I'm on with a team that is just full damage. Here I will show actually, so there's no regen. When I swap a weapon, you saw my armor bar fill back up. So every time you're out of combat, you can actually use that to heal yourself up. So we have a chameleon striker with 2 blues. We have a red build spotter vigilance with a ranger FAMAS. And we have a little bit more of a jumbled mess with regen. But all 3 should actually deal okay damage. I'm going to go up here. I am aware that I do not have a hive yet, so I am going to play it a little bit safer, but a little bit safer is just that. It's a little bit safer. This enemy next to me, I actually noticed that they weren't aiming for me, so I will go for the enemy that will likely aim for me. I'm going to just quickly loot a little bit. I'm going to go and set up here and basically create, again, a second line of fire, so to say. And also I know that enemies will spawn from across in the bottom and in the top in a second. We have another heavy, and with these heavies especially, so you shoot that backpack part, they go into a long animation of them taking off their helmet. Once the helmet's all the way off, you can actually shoot. Their head is basically exposed at that point. And there I'm waiting for the flames just to wear off because I cannot aim down sights while I'm in flames, and it was not worth it to blind fire there. I'm going to use my foam there, just CC those guys a little bit. I do not want to die, and I do not actually see what was shooting me there. It was this guy. Something from the right side is shooting me, and I do not know where it is. It's that elite. And that's sometimes the downside with Fog of War. You give up awareness like that. I would, if I had my minimap, I could definitely see that there was something there, and it would be easy for me to go, okay, I'm getting shot from there. I believe I've done Strand the Tanker with this character today, so everything should be looted, I believe, because it is the daily, I think. But yeah, there's a chest back there that you can grab. And again, I'm going to swap weapon, and pop goes my armor. And yeah, that does require you to be, so it's basically you need to be out of combat. And that means that it's in the same section that you would just normally heal back up if no regen wasn't active. You can just swap weapons and you can get your armor back like that. The other option you have as well is that you can, I've used armor kit, so I'm going to grab it. The other option you have as well is swapping out a piece of gear. So swapping, basically going into your mask slot, swapping your mask to a different mask and then back. And that's actually handy to know for weapons like Chameleon, where if you swap off them, you lose all your stacks. So then it is actually worthwhile to not swap weapon, but just swap gear piece. There is actually a weapon crate all the way back there, in a tunnel back there, but yeah, I'll just leave them. Let's just move on. There's 2 packs of resources on the right side here that I've already also grabbed. My last one, I will actually grab this armor kit as well, and I'm back to 4 armor kits. I'm actually going to check how many technician grenades I have, or missiles I had. I have 4. Because actually also I might want to show how we use the technician grenade, the multi-missile launcher. So what you can use it for actually is, it doesn't target really fast, so here a grenade launcher would be better, but I just target some stuff, I aim up and then I fire. So I do it like that because that's going to have a much higher hit chance, as long as there isn't a roof, of course. The second there's a roof, yeah, that's a little less viable. Here I'm just stacking up on these shields. I see that I'm full. I go for the backpack again. I basically don't even engage them while they're taking off their mask, even though one of my allies went for the chest there and broke it in the meanwhile as well.
Looks like there's some more cooling pumps. You know what to do.
Need to see what this is. There isn't a really low-level player here, so I won't actually go after loot. Swapping again to... but I was in combat by that time. So here I'm going to actually foam there. There's a lot of stuff. Let's keep them there for a few seconds, keep them busy. And that's the strength of having just a skill that you use instead of while I don't mind the shield at all, and you can actually use it quite effectively, here I'm just going to go through the chest. It's all of my allies are also shooting at their chest, so there it made sense to go through it.
Let's see what else you can mess with that'll piss her off.
We have one enemy here, and afterwards again I'm going to swap weapons and get through no regen. So here I'm at full stacks, and make note of that. I was basically at full stacks. I was like at 95 or something. But even just this short walk up here into this boss room, which is pretty short in comparison to a lot of other runs, even though I'm going to have to wait for my allies as well a little bit. I do not need armor kit. I do want some ammo. Because, yeah, also I've lost the ammo regeneration from Gunner. Not that I really will run out of ammo that much, because also I'm using two weapons, basically, a lot more. But, yeah, we're basically at 25 stacks, almost. Yeah, we're at 25 stacks, and now we're going to go even lower than 25 stacks. And that's how fast it decays. And you just have to be aware of that, and just, yeah, it is what it is. I'm going to push up here on the left side, try to stack on this enemy. Usually this one is more likely to be on this left side, more of an elite, or I was hoping our ally that was close to it would trigger it. They're going back for it. And I am going to set up here. I'm going to quickly just shoot these two objectives. Going to prepare a grenade. I'm hoping basically that one of my allies is survivalist, and then this will add a little bit of damage. Oh, actually I did too soon. So on the good of that line is usually when I toss it up there. And I'm going to put a little bit of damage there. And then I'm going to turn around and shoot into this. You saw me shoot the barrel that will CC this wave here. They're basically in fire. And then I'm going to go back to the boss and finish it off. We have a second wave that spawned up there. I'm going to just burn my way, and then there's another wave here. I'm going to use her to see. I see red around me, so that means that, yeah, that is incoming. That mortar is incoming, basically. And I just roll out of the way, and then the last wave is up there. And we did actually kill them all real quick, which is really nice. The secured area is still active, which means that that is still alive. So I was a little bit too fast on my assessment that we were done. I'm going to go up here. I'm not going to hurry. I'm not going to move way too fast. I'm just going to basically here show that, hey, guys, I'm waiting for you guys. Take your time. Take your loot. In the same way that I go for all of the loot and stuff, I'm pretty okay with waiting for other people to get their loot as well. And yeah, I've sadly looted all of this today already. I did a few warm-up rounds just to, before I even started recording, so. Just to warm up and remind myself how Striker plays. Here actually there's this ball button. I'm not going to do it here, both because I can't loot it, and I've looted everything. I keep forgetting that. But because I've looted it all already. But yeah, you basically shoot 3 balls and that opens an extra door. I've shown it actually in my guided tour through Warlords of New York. So if you're really curious, you can either go there or basically just look up where it is. Waiting for my allies to stack up, because this wave is a lot easier if we all go in together. And I'm just going to push in now and foam there. There is a heavy in there, I see. I'm going to put myself like this. I'm going to hopefully get the backpack. That's going to CC him for a few seconds. And in those few seconds, I'm just going to actually break him. I'm going to go down here, and that's fine. I played it super aggressive, and I still had a hive, and that's what the hive is there for. One of the lines I will teach you now to use for the rest of your existence during Div 2 is whenever that happens, you just do the call out of I'm just testing my hive, making sure it still works. I went for the armor kit, but of course don't actually even need it. Yeah, that's always been our line in the past of, yeah, stuff breaks all the time. We're just making sure the hive mechanic is still, it's still working. We need to know. Would rather know that it's working or not. Here I'm not going to stack with ACS because, yeah, I do not have a hive, so I'm playing it a little bit safer. But again, we came in pretty empty. We're already close to full, and we are reaching full in a few seconds. And this is even with 50 RPM less than the FAMAS. I will use a med pack here because I will likely get one back. I'm going to try to break the weak point on that thing, but I missed it basically. And we're just going to make our way through these waves. We have another heavy. I will likely go through the chest. What you can do actually here with heavies is, especially if you're solo, so here I'm mostly going through the chest because I also know other people are shooting at it, and that means that they are likely going to go for the chest because it's a nice big target, and also they likely do not know that the arms and the legs on heavies, on all heavies, actually have less armor on them. So you you break leg armor and chest armor, or arm armor, faster than you do chest armor. And that means that, yeah, it is actually, especially if you're solo, if you can, I will usually break their left arm, me facing them on the right side. But that's, yeah, that's, especially if you're solo, that's valuable. And also if you're with good players, we usually, like if I'm with a dedicated team when we're in comms, then yeah, it's usually that we shoot them in the legs. Here you saw me shoot out that that junction box that let us open that door. And I keep forgetting that I can loot actually, so I am going for all of the loot. But also I'm showing you guys, of course. So here I will look actually if one of my allies goes for that lower valve on the right side there. Nobody went for it, so I'm going to skip it. Otherwise, there is that valve in the bottom right, that valve up there, and then that you can go into the door back there that has the fire in front of it, which has an armor crate in there. But we're skipping it here just for speed. We're going to fight several heavies here, and that's going to mean that I'm going to use my foam a lot. Hopefully nobody rushes up front here or goes very far here, because if you just fight them here, you get to just fight them here. If somebody rushes ahead, which I believe one of my allies I kind of saw do, I'm being set on fire because I'm its main target. I am okay. I should be okay. They should not be able to fire again. And here I'm going to wait for them to come out a little bit and then foam them. Break that. Go kind of for a backpack, but didn't really get it. And here again, I'm just waiting for them to basically cross the boundary because otherwise my foam would not work. And I'm going for the chest again. And I am at full stacks just in this fight again. And yeah, luckily nobody rushed ahead. I even have some loot here. And again, I'm going to swap weapons and get my armor back. And make sure actually to reload my ACS as well. I'm gonna push the stop button to make something go, which is always an oddity there. You hit the emergency stop button basically to make that move, which even cleaners are pretty lawful, so to say. They're lawful evil, so that does not seem in their. That wouldn't be how they would set that up. They would actually still keep to the emergency stop button being an emergency stop button and not moving anything. Yeah, you still see me play pretty aggressive. I have one hive back, one hive charge back. So yeah, I'm back to being very aggressive. And back there is some resources, but I've already looted again. I want to push up here and yeah, show you that we do hit actually the very, very wrong button. So yeah, I'll try to position my camera here. So yeah, you see that we're hitting that top red button, which is an emergency stop. You would never hit that to make something move. And even as evil as the cleaners are, they burn people, they kill people, they mutilate people, but they would not wire an emergency stop button to be to activate a crane. That's way beyond how evil they are. We're waiting for one of our allies. I don't know why. He might be disconnecting. He might be crashing. He's moving, so he was just maybe tapped out or something. And yeah, again, this is a long corridor, a long wait. We had to, of course, also wait 30 seconds there, the full timer for our ally. But yeah, I've lost all my stacks again. One thing you also see there is we have all 3 coyote ranges there for a second before that ally fired. And yeah, so one thing to make clear is coyotes don't stack. When you overlap 2 of them, you basically get the buff once. So if all 3 of us basically had the mid-range buff, we would have a 1 mid-range buff active. But if we have a mid-range and a long-range buff, or a mid-range and a short-range buff active at the same time, like we have here, we have a short-range and a mid-range buff active there, then those you get both, basically. So as long as players are in different ranges, you can make use of it. Just going to have a look around. I didn't hear the grunts of a heavy, so I'm just going to push in here and stack up on him. I'm on full stacks already. I kind of know where they spawn. It is somewhat randomized. I'm going to get away from that explosion. It is, of course, somewhat randomized, but yeah, some spawns, after a while you'll know. Some spawns just have a spawn one place, basically, or 2 or 3 places. I'm going to actually just quickly put some shots up there. Going to help my ally. Just, yeah, I'm using their pouches there to CC them, and I want this thing to end. And I do go down again, but that was just, I went for the wrong thing, and Fog of War was active, so I did not see when these guys spawned there. And quite often, actually, these guys do not spawn where they spawned there. I will actually do that and that to them just to get some CC going. One of my allies went down there. I'm going to first heal up. I'm basically going to take care of myself first, and then I'm going to go for my ally. I'm pretty safe now. I helped with some CCing there, and I'm going to stack here. And I'm pretty safe here in cover, and I will just get them. That wave behind us now spawned. One thing you can do as well when you're holding the button to revive people is if you press and hold the button, at least on PC it works this way, and then hold a direction, the second that your revive is completely done, you can actually move on to you basically move, and that indicates to you that you're basically done with the revive, so you know you can move on. I'm going to stack up here just to, so we can actually spawn Vivian Conley already, but I'm going to go for some kills first. If we can clean this out, because when Vivian comes down, it's going to be with a wave with her as well. And now I'm going to trigger her spawn. And I'm going to toss a grenade there and a grenade there, and that's just going to be used to stagger people. The disrupt will actually stagger reds. It wouldn't disrupt, it wouldn't stagger Vivian, but it would actually disable her ability to do that, which is in there. And I went for a quick kill on her. So you have 2 tactics here. You can either go for the ads first, which is a lot safer, a lot better usually as well. Or you can go for Vivian first. And if you go for Vivian first, that's actually usually easier with an Eclipse or something in the mix. So that you do have some CC on enemies before you get overwhelmed. Because if you don't kill her fast enough and you get overwhelmed by enemies, then yeah, you're going to have a bad time. But there we had plenty of damage. Our ally is running in place and desyncing a little bit, and that could sometimes be a sign of us or me deltaing out, but hopefully not. It's hopefully an issue on their end. I'm going to quickly check all my loot, and again we have all 3 coyote buffs active, which means that yeah, we were at 3 different ranges, and we had a ton of because we had both the 25 and the +10 of coyote as well. I'm going to grab these last loot. 2 people got exotics as well. This one I was close to being keep worthy, but it isn't. I'm going to just quickly check my damage. And yeah, as you can see, we joined pretty early, so we ran this whole mission with them, especially with cleaner missions and Riker's missions in New York and Black Test as well. The damage does quite easily correlate with what actually happened, yeah, kills-wise as well. And yeah, this shows how powerful this build is. It's not even me really playing that well, it's just the build is quite strong. And here you saw me use my foam a few times. My aggressive play made me use my hive a few times. You saw how flatline kind of works. It deals really good damage, and especially that pulse is also nice just for spotting stuff. And even the EMP grenade got used a few times for its stagger. And in a second, I'll join you guys in the conclusion. And to conclude this video, I just wanted to briefly touch on what you saw, hopefully, during this and what you've learned from here, is that, yeah, Striker, especially in this setup with 4 pieces, a Seska chest with obliterate and a hyena mask, is actually very, very strong. And you can variant it out in several ways, add different specializations, add different skills, basically season to taste, so to say. But especially having these 6 gear slots filled in this way is very, very strong. And this is basically the current meta for this game. So I would highly recommend making one of these, using one of these, learning how to stack with the ACS, learning how to shoot a FAMAS, as especially, yeah, FAMAS is a really great gun. You should know how to play it a little bit. And it's a good platform as well to play around with some of the skills that you're going to use through your Division 2 career with all red builds. As yeah, this is basically a reddish red build. When in the past we would make these with high ends. To me, the Striker has basically not made them completely obsolete, but it has surpassed them to a point where I quite often find myself when I'm running a glass red going, but wouldn't I much rather run a Striker? And that's why I also feel that maybe it is a little bit overtuned, that its talent maybe should be toned down maybe a little bit. Maybe the 3-piece bonus should maybe be toned down a little bit, just to bring it in line with all of the other builds. But until they do, make use of the tools available to you, and this is one of the great tools. And as always, I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I hope I taught you at least something in this, again, quite long video. And as always, more than anything, I would love a comment on what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would like to see changed, which builds you would like to see in the future. Everything, as always, will be linked below as well to my build collection, to the calculation sheets used, and all of the pieces that were in this, the build pictures and such. And I hope you join me for the next one, which is likely going to be a short video on, well, short for my doings, short video on how to actually fill in those calculation sheets, likely as the next one. So I hope to see you then. Have a good night.